How is everybody doing? And welcome back for another Strength Chat episode. Today, I've not just got one very special guest, I've got two very special guests for you. Today, I'm joined by the current IPF 57 kilo world champion. And I'm also joined by the current 57 kilo world record squat holder. So two very good lifters join me today. Today, I'm joined by Nnamani and Bobbie Butters. How are you both doing? Who's going to speak first?
Thanks for the introduction.
This will be. This is the thing. I always like to have a little bit of a pause and see who speaks first. But how are you both getting on? How are you both doing?
Go on, Joy. I can see your face now, so go for it.
Yeah, I'm doing all right. How about you, Bobbie?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
What's been happening in your worlds since Worlds then? How's everything been going? Has it just been back to normal life? I know, were you both in a competition just after Worlds as well? Was that right?
Yeah,
Roughly?
That's correct. Yeah, we both travelled to France about 3 weeks after Worlds as well.
How was that?
It was fun. Yeah, really fun. Really enjoyed it.
And what was that competition for? And how did you both feel after Worlds as well?
I thought it was a really good competition. So it was for charity. So in France, it was the pink month. So for breast cancer. So all like the money made went to breast cancer research or cancer research. But yeah, it was really good. I was definitely feeling myself personally a little bit beaten up afterwards. So yeah, it was kind of a weird 3-week turnaround to then go back into training, especially with the traveling, etc. But yeah, it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, definitely. I know we'll probably go into this a little bit as the podcast goes on, but especially having a year and a bit of literally no travel, and then Sweden and then France, all in the space of a month. But before we kind of dive into the rest of the chat, obviously I did a little bit of an introduction there. But for anyone listening who maybe they see you on the platform, but don't know how you got into powerlifting or got involved in training and competing. But then equally, if there's people listening who have never heard of powerlifting, never know what you've done on the platform, do you both just want to give a little bit of an introduction to yourselves or background to yourselves? Come on, who's going first?
That's the most awkward thing to do, to talk about yourself.
I've built it up now. You're gonna have to live up to it.
Bobbie, if I knew your story, I'd tell it for you, and then you can tell mine.
Yeah, I would enjoy that.
Yeah. We should have prepped beforehand. That's definitely what we should have done before.
After you, Bobbie.
Okay. I've been powerlifting for almost 10 years, in and out. So I started powerlifting when I was 16. And then I came out of it for a little bit and then went to British weightlifting, and then came back to powerlifting. So I've been in the 57 kilo weight class for about 3 years. And then before that, I was a junior for 2 years, I think, something along those lines. And yeah, I've now competed internationally 3 times. So yeah, I'm just hoping to continue that, really.
Nice. Joy?
How long have I been powerlifting? I think 2021, about 7 years. So I mean, I got into it I was going to the gym anyway and doing like a strength training, squats, deadlifts, and a bunch of other random stuff. And then I went to another local gym, and there someone suggested that I might be good at powerlifting, and obviously I had no idea what that was, because who does? But I mean, I guess that was my introduction into the sport. And then I did a competition shortly after, and then the rest is history, I guess. Initially competing in the 52 kilogram weight category, but more recently in the 57 kilogram category with Bobbie.
Oh, cool. And one thing that I always like to ask, especially, competing on the international stage, how does, and this might, you might not remember the feelings on your first competition, but how does it compare competing on the international stage compared to when you both started out? Because I know a lot of the powerlifters that I train are beginner and intermediates, and a lot of people are looking to get involved in their first competition. And obviously they get involved in strength training because they enjoy it. And seeing you two compete on the platform, you seem to both enjoy it, in terms of competing. So compared to, world stage where there's records and titles, how does it compare to that very first competition that you did, that progress through, if you like?
Go on, Joy. I'll let you start.
Okay, so I remember in my first competition, and almost every single competition since, I'm always super nervous. It's kind of weird, it didn't matter that I'd been doing it for a few years. I would always still be nervous, especially throughout squats. I don't know, it's just a really unshakable, shaky nerves. Although, weirdly enough, Worlds, I don't know, I just didn't feel nervous this time, I don't think there are many competitions where I can say I didn't feel nervous, but Worlds, I just didn't. I don't know why. I don't think it's because I've been doing it for a long time and I've eventually sort of grown out of being nervous. I don't think it's that at all. I think it might be because, I don't know, I'm pretty easily pleased and quite content. I don't know what I was looking for from that competition. So
yeah. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Just I think that's a good way of looking at it, just being content, because, it's always, I literally had a conversation about this, what is it today? Friday, maybe yesterday? Anyway, a couple of days ago. And obviously, there's competitions coming up, and there is the Yorkshire North East competition next Sunday, actually. So this podcast might have gone out by that when that competition's been. But some people have been leading up to training, and I've got a couple of people competing, and some of the training sessions haven't gone well. And it's kind of, that's not the end of the world. Just one bad training session doesn't undo everything that you've had. It's still unfortunately, we're not all professional athletes and get paid millions of pounds to do powerlifting, although that would be really nice. It's a hobby. You've got to enjoy it, and being, content doing it and enjoying the training is part of it. Bobbie, what are your thoughts on World's first competition?
Okay, so I guess I get asked this question a lot of do the nerves ever go away? For myself personally, I always get really nervous. I'm similar to Joy in that I'm typically a very nervous lifter, and always have been. I even get nervous for training sessions, etc. And that's just, I think, part of my personality as well. I guess just thinking about it now, one thing that's, I guess, is slightly different from my first competition is I remember my first competition, I didn't really know what it was. I showed up in I was wearing a Michael Jackson t-shirt, shorts, and a pair of running trainers, and I was just like a deer in headlights, just don't really know what to expect, just gonna go. I was very nervous, as I am always. But I guess now I've done many competitions in numerous sports. I guess now you have a bit more of, what to expect. You've kind of got the process in mind of what happens. You get used to, I guess, the listening to the commands, because I know people get nervous about, oh, what if I miss a command? If you miss a command on your first competition, that's actually really good, because you get to learn from it and you get to learn from that experience. But yeah, so I guess it's just you are more expecting of what's going to happen, and you can just take each step at a time when you're a bit more used to the process. And that can, for myself personally, that helps me channel my nerves a little bit more.
Yeah. And definitely, because it's one of those things. I always think nerves are good. I always get nervous before I have a rugby game or a powerlifting competition or anything like that. And the nerves will vary depending on the competition. But I'm glad you said there about, if you do miss a command, you've got to learn something from it. It's not a case of, right, that's it, you can't do powerlifting anymore. You can't even do the commands. That's it. You've got to learn from it. With obviously, competing at Worlds as well, we compared Worlds and the first competition. But with this being the first Worlds after COVID as well, and traveling around, how was it? How was going to Worlds after COVID and actually having a year of not competing and then, you know, diving straight in terms of, you know, qualifying and competing at Worlds? What was it like? Was it different to other international competitions? Was there a little bit more added pressure, or was it just a case of, oh sweet, we're back competing? What was it like after, you know, the year of COVID?
So first of all, I really enjoyed the non-competition time. I really enjoyed, you know, just lifting with, I mean, I just like lifting. It doesn't really matter if I'm competing or not. I will just enjoy every session. And then finally competing, so in Sweden, I guess you could tell it was a bit quieter. One, because of COVID, two, because there were other federations which had some issues. So, I mean, in terms of sort of that hoping to see everyone you wanted to see, perhaps there wasn't the opportunity for that. And also, I think even the venue had sort of restrictions on, you know, wearing masks and where you could go and who could enter and that sort of thing. Actually, the only Bobbie mentioned the turnaround between Sweden and France, and the lifting and the body, that recovery was fine, but recovering from the COVID admin was more difficult.
Yeah. What was that like as well? Because especially, you know, it's the I've never competed internationally. Yeah, the furthest I've ever gone is to the British down in Portsmouth and Dover, which I thought was really far. So to go to Sweden, especially taking all your kit and all that sort of stuff, how was that like? Because I know we talk about nerves, but what about the stress of it all as well? You know, how was that? And also, what was the prep like in terms of finding somewhere to stay? And did you both work together on that, or did you do that individually, or what was it like in terms of getting over there?
In terms of where we stayed, so we all stayed in the competition hotel. So luckily that was kind of, at least I think that's correct anyway. So that was pretty much straightforward for myself, and I think that's same for yourself, Joyce, staying in the hotel. In terms of COVID admin, it was just one of those of like, I just felt like at one point, like we could get to the borders of Sweden, just like, no, sorry, you're not allowed to enter. Which it wasn't like that. It was actually a lot smoother than what I personally anticipated, just based on obviously what you see in the media, what you read on the websites, and what you need to do. As long as you've got the paperwork, which there's a decent amount of paperwork, then you're all good. Really, from that perspective.
Yeah, because I know obviously with travel opening up a little bit more now, but with making sure that you're getting there in time, I think there's always going to be that doubt in the back of your mind. Well, what if they turn me around? What if I can't come in? You said there, and Joy, you mentioned enjoying a little bit of time off, you know, from the competitions and that sort of stuff. But with especially, you know, both having different coaches, but then both representing, GB. How were your preps leading in to the competition, and especially, you know, both competing together on the platform? Did you notice any differences, or have you spoken about your training in terms of the differences, or was it quite similar, or what were your goals heading in to the competition, heading into Worlds?
I guess for myself, the goals are always the same for any competition. I always just want to do the best with what I've got on the day. In terms of preparation, I think generally as you become more advanced, when I say advanced, I just mean more experienced. So doing it for a long period of time, trading can slightly differ. So for myself, I don't do as many top singles as when I first started, just because of the general skill. So for example, it's much harder for me to do like doubles and triples because I can fatigue quite quickly and kind of hit a wall. So I was focusing a bit more on that, which I have done for the past couple of years. So but yeah, just kind of otherwise similar kind of prep to how I have been doing over the past few years, really leading into Worlds.
Yeah. Joy, what about your training?
So I guess it was pretty similar to how it had been previously, except having the extended time away from competing. So all that time not competing, then, you know, you don't really consider that you have to do a peak or anything. And actually I spent a lot of time doing a lot of volume, especially for my squat, which worked really well. And actually, one thing I'll say is like closer to competition, actually, we sort of dropped the volume. So I spent a year of doing basically volume only on the squat. And then kind of dropped a bit of that moving towards the competitions. Then we noticed it had like not the intended consequence on my squat. But, you know, looking back, you just know that, okay, that is something which really works for my squat, and actually it's not something I need to change getting closer to competition. But I did really enjoy training without any, the thing is, I don't set goals anyway. I think they're pretty useless in powerlifting. Everyone wants to get stronger, so you don't need to call out a number.
Yeah,
you're gonna get there
just
when you get there.
More weight on the bar. That's it. Yeah. And one thing that you both said there, and again, you know, a little bit like what you said there, Bobbie, in terms of you know, more advanced just means more experienced. For sort of the beginners or people getting involved in powerlifting, you've both mentioned there that the training into the competition, there wasn't like crazy changes from what you've done in the past. Do you think it is just that case of both of you developing more experience and just, you know, like what you said there, Joy, people want to be like, right, I need to get this weight. If I don't hit this weight, that's it. Everything's over. Whereas just a case of, yeah, actually, I'm just going to change training around, enjoy it, keep working forward, and we're gonna get stronger, rather than trying to think of this, because it's like with anything, it's like when people look at rugby players or footballers or boxers, what's the magic formula that they do? Why are they world record holders? Why are they, you know, world champions? So have your training cycles changed a lot, or has there been small little tweaks as you've got more advanced and got more experienced?
Okay, it's probably a good time for me to tell you that I don't really have the answers to these kind of questions. I'm not interested in programming at all. So I have a coach who obviously writes my program and coaches me. I'm not interested. I
love it. I
don't care. I'm just here to lift.
I absolutely love that. That's amazing. That's just like,
I have no interest at all in almost like even talking about powerlifting. I find quite difficult sometimes. It's only fun to do it, right? Okay, yeah, it's only fun to do it for me. No. I'm not really interested in all the bits around it. So I find it quite difficult to engage in these conversations. I just don't have the answers because I don't have the interest. But I know someone who does. Her name's Bobbie Butters. She's really nice.
Thanks, Joy.
What a setup.
Love it. So yeah, I guess from my sort of background, so I am a coach myself, so sometimes I have to take a bit more of Joy's approach there and remember that I am the athlete and I'm not coaching myself and I have a coach. Sometimes that is hard to separate the two, but that's really important for me to remember, that like my coach has programmed this, and to just sort of almost like do what I'm told, like, you know, within reason, and be the athlete. But I guess something that's always kind of important, and I mention this to my students, I mention this to my athletes, is that there's key principles of training for a reason. Periodization is taught for a reason, and that's because generally periodization, where you've got different phases of training leading into a peak, etc. There's no fancy formula per se. It can be tweaked and individualized for the individual athlete depending on numerous factors, but ultimately there still needs to be that baseline of just general principles of strength training and how to get stronger.
Yeah, and actually that's two really good answers from both what you've said there, which falls into the next bit that I kind of wanted to touch on, because Joy on the other end, I just enjoy lifting. I've got a coach, you take care of that. I'll go into the gym and train it from there. Bobbie, obviously as a powerlifter, but also as a coach yourself, two very different styles. And I kind of wanted to touch on, you know, because there's some people, it's just powerlifting. Want to get numbers, want to learn everything, listen to everything about podcasts. Not a bad thing at all. Whereas the other thing is just like, yeah, I just want to rock up and lift. It's essentially me with rugby. I like watching rugby, but I just want to rock up and just be like, yeah, we're gonna have a run around and see how we get on. So how did that sort of reflect in on the day? Because you've both mentioned that you're in terms of nerves, but in terms of managing that on the day, letting the coach just take care of the numbers. For you, Joy, and then Bobbie, for you, thinking about, right, you're not the coach, you've got to put that in someone else's hands. Did you both notice a difference in terms of how you both handle yourselves on a competition day? And looking at each other, what do you think is better, and what do you learn from one another in terms of, right, okay, what's going to be the best for me on the competition day? If that all makes sense.
Yeah, I guess for myself on competition day, like I don't really I don't follow the competition per se. I am just very much like, I do like trust the coach. Obviously at international competitions, you typically don't have the coach that coaches you, you have somebody else, and it is quite important to have a level of trust in that as well, because at the end of the day, you're there to lift, and it's very important for you to be able to do that, to just focus on lifting and not get too bogged down with some of the technicalities, etc. So I know on competition day, like, I'm more than happy to converse with the coach, etc. But I can just sort of be the athlete, if that makes sense, and let them look at the numbers and that sort of thing for myself personally.
Yeah, because I know sometimes it can be quite hard, because I think you've got to be in that mindset of either coach or athlete. Sometimes you can, because I know for me, one of the maybe not the worst things, but competing on the same day as I was handling one of my clients, and I found that really hard, because I was asking them what they were wanting to do and trying to take on board of them. Whereas, I forgot things in my warm up. I, was like, right, well, I need to eat. I need to make sure that I'm not doing that. I know some coaches listening, and, I've seen coaches and I know coaches that have done it, but I find that quite tough, trying to have that separation. If I'm competing on that day, I need to compete on that day. And then if I'm coaching, I'm coaching. From your side of things, Joy, from the case of, right, okay, and enjoying lifting and going there, how do you find competitions? And from your perspective, looking at other lifters, what do you think about on competition day? Because I know, was there an image that you on Instagram that you put up, or you sat just reading a book, or just chilling out? So, maybe a different approach. How do you get on in competition days, and who do you look at in terms of, or do you even look at other lifters?
So because, okay, I just like to lift, that's the bit that's fun. And one, in competitions, I'm nervous. And two, I know there are other lifters which kind of get very excited about the whole sort of competition atmosphere. And I find that a bit overwhelming, which is why I take a book. It's not like a focus or anything, it's actually a distraction from everything else that's going on around. And then, following on from that, I try not to, not that I try to not take notice of things, but I just need to stay within myself for the most part of it. Because no, I do find it when people are sort of running around and rushing around and getting excited and back and forth to attempts and switching attempts and whatever. I don't know, all of that stuff kind of is a big, what's the word? I don't know, it distracts from the lifting. That's all I wanted to do.
Yeah. And with that as well, with that having that distraction, do you think that's where, if you have a poor session or a poor competition or anything like that, do you think that's what sometimes people miss by having those distractions and just being like, look, yeah, I'm here to lift. It's not the be all and end all, and being able to switch off from that as well, in terms of managing stress? Because some people can be have post-comp blues and get stress leading into the competition. Having your mentality with the side of things, do you reckon that's what people could maybe learn from a little bit?
I mean, it's not like people need to learn from me. We're all different and everything works differently for different people. I mean, I've never had post-comp blues. But also I'm not a person, I mean, like you say, like switching off. I switch on and not, I actively switch on and off, but my sessions are my sessions. And then outside of my session, I'm not lifting. So there's nothing to think about, nothing to worry about. And I go into each session, I enjoy it, I go home, and then perhaps the next day I'll have another session which I enjoy. I'm also not very some people talk about the journey and don't get caught up in the destination. It's all about the journeys. I don't care about the destination. I don't care about the journey either. I just want to have a good session today.
Yeah. And with that, because obviously, with the processes of it, how does that fit into a case of when competitions have been, coming up, for worlds qualifiers and that sort of stuff? Do you both have different approaches in terms of, was worlds always a target, or is it just a case of, right, okay, we're going to follow our training and see how we get on? What were your approaches in terms of the targets for this year, in terms of getting to worlds and winning and breaking the squat record and all those sort of things? Did you both have different approaches, or was it a case of, or was worlds a target for both of you?
I guess we've known we were going to kind of be selected for Worlds since March 2020. So that's I think it's quite a unique situation that we've been in, because it's been one of those where for 18 months we were like, is Worlds going to happen? Is it not going to happen? When is it going to happen? Is it going to happen at all? So I guess this time has been quite unique, because it's been like we've been preparing for this competition for a long time. So it's quite difficult really to answer that, I think.
Yeah, because that's what I mean in terms of, having that. Usually it would be right, you've got to qualify, whereas having 18 months of when it's going to happen, was that always, I don't know, sometimes it can be maybe something hanging over you in terms of, right, okay, I've may potentially have worlds coming up. Did that change anything in terms of knowing that it was upcoming?
No, not for me.
I don't know. Like, I think I'm trying to think. Like, I don't think it really changed too much. Because we just sort of went through the training cycles, and it was just a matter of, okay, cool. Well, let's just see if Worlds does happen. If so, we know we'll change. We'll go into competition prep whenever that is, and it was just sort of like I'm similar to Joy in that, like, I just enjoy the training. I felt very lucky that I was able to continue training over the course of the 18 months, and it didn't really change like too much. It just meant that 12 weeks before Worlds, when we found out that it was even then kind of hopefully definitely going to happen, we just sort of like, right, okay, let's kind of focus. We've got a date in mind now. That was the only change, really.
Yeah, because with that, because there was a couple of we mentioned there about a couple of federations not going, and we know when it was confirmed, it was all going for that. With the competitions for you, Joy, coming up, would it have been any competition, and it would have just been a case of, I'm just lifting there, whether it had been World, Nationals, or anything? Is it just, whatever competition is coming up, you would have just put that performance in and lifted, what you would have lifted?
Yeah, I mean, so even a few weeks before Worlds, we had Nationals. I mean, Bobbie didn't do it, but I did. It's not that I felt like I had to reserve myself because I had Worlds coming up or anything. It's just I ended up doing both.
Yeah, because they weren't that far apart. I know we've especially, a real good example is would obviously be Tony Cliff doing the classic and the equipped worlds as well. Following on from that, so I know obviously you had the worlds and then 3 weeks after had a competition. In terms of from your performances at the worlds now, and looking at sort of next year's calendar, what can do you have any goals for next year? What is the plan for next year, or is it a case of we're back into training and we're going to see what's happening? What are kind of, as we round off 2021, what are you both looking for next year in terms of nationals, internationals, or targets that you've set yourselves?
I guess mine's quite simple. I just want to get stronger. hopefully lift some heavier weights. I'm not sure. It'd be nice to hopefully once we find out when nationals is, like that'll be like I guess my first goal, and then hopefully from that, hopefully get selected again for internationals. That's kind of where my mind's at right now.
Yeah. Joy?
I mean, I honestly don't set goals. I think they're a big waste of time in powerlifting, but I guess probably similar to Bobbie, just take each competition as it comes and do your best, which is a very cliche thing to say, but I only say it because I don't know, when people set goals, it almost highlights that perhaps if you don't set goals, does that mean you're not chasing something? Well, of course I am. That's why I go to the gym every day. It's inherent in the point of, you know, following a program or doing powerlifting. Of course I'm trying to get stronger. But that's all I hope to do.
Yeah, it can be quite daunting in terms of, because like we've, you know, with there can be that mindset of, right, you've got a 12-week plan, you've got to get to this competition, you've got to do this. And it's like with anything, when I've spoken to clients, whether they're powerlifting or whatever, there's something there that you don't have to do anything that I've said. You know, you don't have to do that. You can if you want to. Here's a plan in place, and that's why, you know, especially when I sent over the topics in mind, you know, two different maybe thought processes or backgrounds when it comes to powerlifting, but in terms of both of your mindset surrounding it, I think everyone thinks that, right, they'll have everything planned out. They'll have everything right down to the real minor detail. Whereas actually, yeah, we want to get stronger, which is obviously the goal of powerlifting. Do you both know when your next competitions would be? Have calendars not been released yet? I don't know.
Calendar. I don't think calendars have been released yet, but my next one I think would be nationals, which is normally February, March time. But yeah, I'm unsure as to when it would be.
Yeah, mine would be the same.
Yeah. Oh, cool. And the last question that I like to ask, and I'm very interested to see whether you have similar answers or different answers on this. Obviously, we've spoken about prepping for competitions, worlds, traveling, mindset surrounding competitions and distractions. For people listening who are getting involved in powerlifting for the first time, or maybe have a couple of competitions underneath their belt, or are stressed or nervous about competitions, what would be your take-home points or words of wisdom? Who's going to take this one first?
I feel the pressure. It's like, oh. Have you got anything, Joy, that you would?
Yeah. I mean, the short answer is do what you want. But I guess the bigger explanation of that is that I think sometimes people forget that powerlifting is a hobby. And when something is a hobby, it means you can give as much or as little as you want. I think especially in the social media age, there's a lot of noise and a lot of pressure about giving your all and, you know, being all in. And if it's a hobby, you really don't have to. You know, even quite recently, people have been talking about, oh, you know, when I'm not motivated, I rely on discipline. Like, why are you disciplining yourself to do something that you supposedly want to do anyway? It doesn't make sense. So just do things that you want to do, because at the end of the day, when it's a hobby, you know, it's not your employment. You're not getting paid for it. You don't have a performance assessment with your manager afterwards. Then just do what you want to do.
Some very wise words to finish on there. I kind of feel as though I'm just like, I feel like pressure's gone off my shoulders. I trained today and I'm like, wow, do you know what? You should just enjoy it. Bobbie, do you have any words to build on from that?
Yeah, so I agree. Like, just enjoyment is such a key thing. I say this to everybody who I speak to. Like, you've got to enjoy what it is that you're actually doing. One thing that I hear a lot of from my own athletes and people who say, I get this a lot, where, oh, I'm going to compete one day, but when I'm strong enough. And I'm always like, what does that even mean? Strong
I know,
enough.
someone's got to come last.
I know. Precisely. Like, it's like, what's it going to take for you to be strong enough? Do you need to be a world champion before you can be strong enough? I do get confused by this. And I think it's potentially down, I don't really know why it's down to, if I'm perfectly honest. But if you want to compete in a powerlifting competition, then go and compete in a powerlifting competition. Go and experience it. Like, I'm unsure on what this means by strong enough. Just go and enjoy lifting. And remember why you started lifting, and do it because you want to do it. And that's a big thing. Do it because you want to do it, not because you're trying to prove anything, not because you're trying to show your friends what you're doing, just because you want to do it. That's why they should do it. I remember a 16-year-old girl said to me that the only reason why she started powerlifting was because she could tell people that she could lift. And I was devastated to hear that someone at 16 was doing it just because she wanted to show people that she was doing it. And it's like, that you're not doing it for you, then you're doing it for others. So make sure you're doing it for you and you enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's two good points to finish on, because I know obviously other episodes that I've done and I've spoken to people, speaking to lifters and coaches. There's loads of stuff out there on programming. There's loads of stuff out there on, you'll see loads of posts on top 3 tips to have a successful comp. This is the best exercises that you need for this lift or something like that. And that's kind of why I know some of the questions there, we didn't want to go through the nuts and bolts of programming and all those sort of things. But in terms of, 2 lifters like yourselves, who got involved in powerlifting, got involved in training for the enjoyment of it, and to keep competing because they do enjoy it. I think sometimes that can be, you both touched on it a little bit there about, the social media side of things and, the pressure that's put on people. Whereas actually, I feel pressure off my shoulders now of, you've just got to go enjoy it, which ultimately, that's basically why I wanted you both on the podcast, because I'll get asked quite a lot of questions. Oh, I'm really struggling with this. What do I need to do? What's the magic formula that I need to get stronger? How can I get strong enough? Like what you said there, Bobbie, to go to a competition. Whereas actually, it's a case of like what Joy said. Someone's got to. It's like someone's got to get relegated from a league in rugby or something like that. But if you're at that point. I remember going to my first nationals and thinking, bloody hell, like there is some strong lifters here. But then you learn from it and be like, oh, actually, I've got a bit of I want to see if I can progress now. And like what you've both said throughout this podcast, my goal is just to get stronger. And if you get stronger, you're going to end up progressing a little bit more. So thanks a lot for both of you taking the time to jump on. If anyone had any questions or are struggling with anything, or just want to see your social media or anything, where could people find you or follow you both? This is where neither of them want to give their Instagram handles, and they don't want any followers.
Bobbie, what's yours?
Mine is the simplest handle ever. It's Bobbie.Butters on Instagram.
I hope everyone's taking notes on that one.
It's so easy to find.
And mine is J_Nnamani.
I honestly thought when I said that then you were going to say each other's, and I was like, that would have been so cool to finish on. So in sync. Thanks a lot for both of you taking the time to jump on. Like I said before, I think that take-home message of enjoying what you're doing, and the fact that I always like to speak to lifters who have competed at the elite level and show people that actually people do it because they enjoy it. And a little bit like what you said there, Joy, it's a hobby. It's a case of, yes, we want to get stronger, but we want to enjoy it and enjoy the competitions that we're going to. So thanks a lot, Joy. Thanks a lot, Bobbie, for taking the time to jump on. Thanks a lot to everyone.
Thank you very much for having us.
No worries at all. Thanks a lot to everyone listening, and I will see you all next week.